I don't think your best thing is taking compliments. I've known you a long time. It's not your best thing. And so brace yourself. Keep your knees loose. I'm about to kiss your ass pretty good here. This is one of the segments on the show that's called Artists in Sobriety. And we've had a Shakespearean actor on here. We've had a painter of note. But you're the first guy I've had on here who's a shit-hot recording artist and live musician. How many years did you play high before you got sober?
I've never done that math, so give me a moment. I started playing before I got high, so there was 2 or 3 years, 3rd grade to 6th grade, before my 14th birthday, so 13 to 21 years.
Okay.
Okay.
And you've been sober how long now?
33 years and change.
Yeah, our numbers are quite similar. Did you notice anything immediately at gigs and in recording sessions when the fog lifted?
Sheer terror.
Yeah.
Yeah, a very kinetic, my hand shaking on my first sober gig when I went to throw the standby on my amplifier, having to literally grab my hand and go, okay, just breathe. And then people indicating to me that my posture was very rigid on stage and that my legs were locked, my knees were locked, and that it's not a good look. But but I got through it, and that receded. You know, within the brain works in creating new neural pathways roughly in 90-day increments, right? Okay. When you change behaviors and stuff. So I bet it went away in my first 90 days of drug-free and alcohol-free existence.
There's an old truism in recovery that when we get sober, most of us get either a motorcycle or a therapist license. We have one of each represented on this phone call.
Well, I didn't get my therapist license until I was more than 30. I got mine when everybody else is retiring. I got mine in my 3rd decade of sobriety, 4th decade actually, after 30 years of sobriety. So
you stayed on base.
Well, I'm a very misunderstood person. One thing I've learned remaining in recovery for as long as I have is that I need to stay here and I like to stay here. I really look forward to the recovery experience. And that's my fault and my doing, not a bass player. I'm a songwriter who's not a very good singer who's known for playing bass professionally. And the more I fine-tune my life experiences to accommodate the songwriter in me, the more comfortable and happier I am, and the more I make sense of the world around me. I make sense of the world around me through songwriting, remaining sober, and the methodology that was gifted to me to do that, and through the narrative of songwriting and improvisational music. These are the 3 things that help me make sense of the world around me and make sense of the relationships that I'm in. Life is relationally constructed for all of us. We understand things through relationships with people and entities and processes. We don't use mathematics or physics to make sense of the world. Once I had that aha moment, which was gifted to me by the drummer from Black Sabbath, Bill Ward, because he said to me many, many years ago, "Paul, I'm a very misunderstood person. I'm a songwriter who played some bit of drums for a while." I went, wow, that sounds interesting. And I started looking more deeply into that, and I really identified with that like in the last 7 years. So that needs to be said, because that's definitely a gift of staying in the recovery community.
Yeah, I'll accept that. I know you pretty well, and your talents are, you're a house with many rooms, and I've been around the block, and you are absolutely on the short list of talent to probably closing in on genius level cats. So,
well, that's very kind of you, but wow. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. See,
very kind.
It wasn't that hard.
I'm glad we're not on video right now. I'm crawling under the table.
Right. Let me come at this from another angle. When you're playing bass,
yes,
we good so far? You do play bass.
Yeah,
you own a bunch of them and you play them.
Yes.
When it's your job to probably in tandem with the drummer to be the heartbeat. Talk to me about that part of the pocket and the heartbeat.
Oh, okay. Sure. Most of the music that I play and that you play, we come to an understanding with that music that if it's an ensemble and it's not a solo performer, that the drummer is really what's moving everybody's lower chakras, right? From the drummer speaking to that part of the body and the human experience, and then the singer who's telling the narrative and gathering the tribe and being like a shaman. That person may also be playing an instrument, but they're singing and telling a story. Is the heart chakra up to the certain singers, certain members of the audience really want to be in an emotional or intimate relationship with that person, or they may actually eroticize that relationship. And the generation of females I grew up with, so did Mick Jagger, so did Little Richard, right? So did lots of people. And vice versa, the women did it. There were icons like me and all my friends had major crushes on Joni Mitchell once Blue dropped. We're like, where is she? I need to find a Joni or whatever. And then, of course, when the Heart Sisters show up, you had these two elf princesses. Like, well, this is kind of cool. They kind of got the Zeppelin thing, their own take on Zeppelin here. Pacific Northwest hippie elf princesses. Well, who are they? The drummer, I believe, dictates everything in between the singer and the drummer is kind of James Jamerson or these great bass players that, these people that do amazing bass lines that change the fabric of popular culture. But they're in service to the drummer and their own music at the same time. The drummer dictates the choices I make. I practice along with drum performances. I don't sit and I have friends that are like, some of my bass player friends are like just wizard status of physical ability and musical ability on the bass. That's not my story. And they can actually practice bass by itself. The way I practice bass is I play along with James Brown records. I have a collection of CDs, of sample CDs that were made in the 90s for beat makers and stuff. It's Bernard Purdy, it's Mike Clark from Headhunters, it's drummers like that, really, really good funk drummers. And that's how I practice, is I just play to a groove, or I'll put on my Midnight Special DVDs. I have the whole set from the 70s, because you get to play along with, if you want, you can play along with Anne Murray, but you can also play along with Redbone, Come and Get Your Love. Then you can play.
Oh, that's so great. And
and so it makes me interact. So what I'm saying is that the bass, John Paul Jones told me when I had the pleasure of talking to him about this stuff, that he realized that as long as he allowed John Bonham's choices to dictate what he played, it was going to be magical. So I believe in that. But the list of drummers that I've played with, whoa, I've been very fortunate. A lot of the best drummers of my generation and the new generation, and I seem to get along very reasonably with them, because when I was a kid growing up, I played a lot of R&B and gospel on army bases with very culturally diverse group of people. I was thrust into all these communities with people from all over the United States. My friends in the school, I'd meet a kid like you from Texas who was into whatever he was into, and then I'd meet a kid from wherever, Harlem or something. His family's from New York, from the hood, and then they'd be into what they were into, and we'd all play music together. So I was very fortunate in that regard, that I learned very early on to subjugate the bass to the drums and the song, the narrative, right? Like when you taught me how to play that 11-bar blues, that's to support the singer's narrative, right? Make sure you do that turnaround correctly so that there's a reason why that song exists in that format. And so that's my most important things about creating a rhythm section vibe, is to trust the drummer. And I've been in very, very few circumstances where I've said, man, this isn't happening for me. This drummer kind of isn't like doing it, for me. That's happened to me very infrequently. And I've gotten calls from some of my drummer friends of great prominence, and then just, from all levels of the food chain or whatever, that have called me and said, hey man, I got a bass player here I'm not feeling it. What do I do? Is there anything I can say to him? I don't want to put him in his head. The last thing you want to do is put somebody in their head and make them conscious of their groove or their feel or their choices, or, disempower them. I learned to ride the wave, and I've been very lucky. I mean, when I look at the list of drummers that I've worked with creatively and professionally and otherwise, and they're my friends and stuff that I get to play with and jam with and stuff, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I'm not much of a lad for drummer jokes because about a large proportion of the greatest musicians I've ever had the complete honor of gigging with and drummers. And what I do, I'm a car guy, so when you're in a like a Challenger 440 that's really hitting, that's the feel. You're like, oh, I can do so little here, and the wave, you call it the wave.
I have a thing about drummer jokes that I'd like to interject.
Yeah, go.
Put the word musician in there and watch what happens.
Noted.
Kind of works.
How can I make this quick and efficient?
Sure.
I'm old enough to have started with magnetic tape, and I was doing actually an audio book. I used to do a bunch of those. So this would have been the 90s, I think. The first time I was in a studio that used probably would have been Pro Tools. That's not my side of the deal. On the other side of the glass, I don't know much about digital production. I don't know anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
And but I know. I was doing a calypso tune, and I borrowed a papoose. It's a little probably B to B tuned 6-string, kind of mandolinish, but I don't play mandolin, so I wanted that feel.
They call them a soprano guitar now when they're selling them.
But it sits in the mix like a mando, and I could play it. So I finished.
Was it A to A or B to B?
Can't remember.
Okay.
It was 30 years ago. But the fellow on the producer said, let's come back and look at that. And I noticed that he said, look at, not listen to. And I'm like, uh-huh. I went in there and, back in my day, you kids get off my lawn. So anyway, for the first time I see the playhead sitting there with the measures shooting by it. And I was disgusted with myself. It looked like I was throwing tomatoes at a brick wall. It was like little ahead, on the money, little behind, little ahead, on the money, and no pattern to it. But I was seeing the tiny imperfections in my rhythm visually in front of me. And, I was about to cry, and the guy goes, no, look, boop, and he just fixed it. And that's the world we're all living in now. Back then, you had to be able to play it. If you weren't playing right, there's no fixing that. You could turn it down. That's about all you could do in the mix. It's not an option for a rhythm instrument to be all over the place rhythmically. So what did sobriety do for you in that realm? I mean, you talk with such specificity. I really am interested to hear what you have to say here.
That's a very interesting question. Well, I think that one of the things that I've noticed about people who choose to abstain from drugs and alcohol because we have to. Let me just speak for myself. I have to. My situation becomes, well, before 9/11, we used to say, let's not congratulate ourselves for running out of a burning building. But the introspection that we get from meditation and also from the cut and paste, no pun intended, cut and paste and rinse and repeat daily practices of looking at our part in things and what's bothering us and where other people bother us, we tend to get a sense of our part in things so that we can get I don't want to suggest a heightened level of awareness compared to other people, because it isn't a race. It's just about your own perceptions, right? And where are you at? How do you perceive things? With respect to musical grooves and stuff like that, it's pretty obvious when something's sitting, like you were talking, when you get in a 440 Challenger and you just punch it and you just go, wow, this works. I could just sit here and enjoy this. Much the same with music. In Allman Brothers world, we call it hitting the note, where everybody goes, yeah, when we got to that song and the bridge, and then we took off and it was so-and-so solo, and we were just like, whoa, that's called hitting the note in Allman Brothers world, where everybody's hitting the note. The note is being hit. In Black Sabbath world, Bill said to me, he used to say, oh, Paul, because we had a 4-piece band too. He'd go, oh, Paul, we invoked the fifth member. The fifth member's here, right?
I just got feathers on the back of my neck stood up when you said
this awareness. He said, it happened to the Sabs when Tony showed us the Black Sabbath riff, we decided to doom the music because the world wasn't tie-dye anymore. You know, the hippie dream had gone awry. So the fifth member shows up in a four-piece band or in a power trio or something, this altered thing that happens, and this awareness of that. And then you go, oh, I am supposed to be pushing it right here. Let's lean into the beat a little more. Let's put it on top, because some people's natural inclination is to play behind the beat. That's where I sit. Some people's natural inclination is to play in the center of the beat. Some people's natural, they're just on top, and it's work. It's their musicality. There's nothing wrong with it. You just find your place. But if you have the physiological, somatic awareness of where you are and you can feel it, basically it comes down to kind of dancing. Like, are you dancing with this music? Is it, or are you bumping into it? Oh, do I need to bump into it? Maybe this music needs to be bumped into. One thing I learned with playing with Bobby Weir, many things I learned playing with him. One thing I learned is it is really okay to drift. Like, follow the drift, ride the wave, man. Yeah. Other bands, they're like, no. We don't do that. We hit it and quit it. You know, or not hit it and quit it. We just hit it and then we motorboat along that thing and do not. But I mean, you know, anybody who plays. The other thing is are we playing songs that support a narrative and a singer's delivery so that the audience is gathering, the tribe gathers around that shaman, and that shaman, be they male, female, by, you know, non-cisgender, whatever that individual's thing is in terms of their identity, it doesn't matter. They're a shaman gathering the tribe. They're telling a story. They're helping the audience make sense of the world around them, their internal world of emotions and their external world of perceptions, and where those two things meet. That's where music works, to really go, oh, okay, Bruce Springsteen is singing a song he totally made up. He never had a gig in a factory. He was a bar band musician. That's why I love his talks in between his things on his Broadway show. He made it all up. He didn't know how to drive. He learned how to drive driving across country for a gig in California, and he would write these songs about cars and everything. He didn't own one, right? He was just an amazing bard with a really strong connection with his muse, right? You know, he codified something and made the people can make sense of the world around it and how they feel. And he knows when to lean into it. He knows when to pull it back, and just intuitively. So the band, if the singer wants it in one pocket and it's going to be at 120 BPM for most of the set, and that's our vibe and that's our groove, or bands like Mazzy Star, where everything was like 80 beats a minute or less, and she did her amazing thing, and that's what you did, and you don't deviate from that. Well, that's service to the muse is what I call that. How am I in service to the muse? And you feel it in your body. It's very somatic, visceral. It's not in... Jocko used to tell people before he unraveled, don't think, concentrate, is what he would say, right? He would say, don't think, concentrate, when he'd be playing with people, because he could sense people. He was, you know, of a higher level of consciousness than most people, smarter than the average bear. And he would be like, don't think, concentrate. He would say that to people he was jamming with, right?
2 days ago, I went on a rafting trip with my family, and it was 6 knuckleheads like me in a boat slopping over the rocks, and we'd been given all this instruction about who to watch and how to hold the thing, and about halfway through it, I'm like, I'm going to do a lot better if I just go on feel. If I just kind of widen my field of vision and find where it's time to push a little harder, when it's time to lay back, this, because it was killing me. It was like playing with another guitar player who has a different, you know, I grew up in a certain part of the country. There's certain players, they could be pretty, you know, not that polished a player, or they could be a triple plus assassin. But some of us are from a certain part of the country, and that's where we expect the feel to go, and it makes it effortless to play with them. And I've played with guys who were, by any objective measure, hotter players than me, and I couldn't get the music to feel right because they were immediately on the one and I'm a billionth behind the one, that kind of thing where it becomes lots of effort, and the fifth member leaves the room.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Referred to earlier that not that many years ago, you also got a license and started doing, what do you like, talk therapy? What's a good way to talk about it?
Well, what happened for me was I was working as a volunteer for an organization called Music Cares for years, just for something to do. It's been a long time now. It was 2014, 2013, so 10 years ago. He said, hey, man, if you get your MFT, he said, yeah, you got a bachelor's degree? I said, yeah, but music degree. He goes, well, hey, if you get your MFT, we can pay you to do what you've been doing as a volunteer here now for a bazillion years. And I went, what's an MFT? I had never heard the acronym. And he goes, marriage and family therapist. And I said, I can't do that. I've never been married and I don't have any kids. He said, it's not all about that. He said, it's about systemic thinking and billing insurance companies. It's a way to get paid. And he said, why don't you check it out? So I started checking it out back then, and I decided to do it because my residual income as a songwriter and my residual income as a studio musician through the film and television fund and union checks and all that kind of stuff, and my songwriting royalties were starting to nosedive. Guys like me used to do a soft landing, into their twilight years, like the generation before me, the Joe Osbornes, the Wrecking Crew guys, all those kind of folks, and the transitional guys like Larry Carlton or Neil Steubenhouse or something. There was enough security that they could like have a good run for 5 to 10 years and then figure it out. Just if they were shrewd and reasonable with their financial strategies. Well, that's not the story for my generation. Our shit went like boom; it just fell off one year. So I started an online program that was fully accredited to get my MFT many years ago. And I really took my time because I was very reluctant to fully embrace it. I didn't want to lose my musical identity. And there's only so much time in the day. So I lollygagged, and I took a really long time to get the academics done. After I got the academics done, then I started doing what's called your practicum, where I had to start seeing clients individually and see groups and families and stuff. So I got that done. And then since then, what I do is I'm an outlier. I exist outside the bureaucracy of the Board of Behavioral Sciences and all that kind of stuff. I chose not to get full licensure. I'm working legitimately as an intern, but I just ask for a certain rate. And once people realize that I've been sober more than 3 decades, et cetera, that I'm worth what I'm asking for. I see a handful of individual clients in the dual diagnosis community because of my experiences with Linda Perry and the LGBTQ Center in West Hollywood. I seem to have an affinity or attract gender nonspecific clients or clients in transition. They seem to be really comfortable with me, even though I'm a privileged white heterosexual male, right? It's no big deal. It tells you very little about a person, really. It's basically, what color do you like? It's really not even, at the end of the day, for them, it's a very crucial thing. But I mean, society's, in my opinion, has really, really got this all wrong for the most part. I mean, we should just embrace everybody and just let everybody be who they are. If they want to be liquid or gender nonspecific or gender fluid, or if they want to change, whatever. So what? Some days, some people like purple, some people like yellow, whatever. It doesn't tell you about the person's character or identity, or, it's really just a very interesting thing to see music raise their eyebrows at this. And right, I work in mental health, but I limit it. I see very few clients, and I run an emotional support group for music carers on Fridays online that we started at the beginning of Zoom. And it was the template for the other music carers groups that are online now. And we have a very strong constituency. We have roughly 15 to 20 people a week, and we have a steady stream of new folks, which is really awesome. We're a doorway on Zoom, and we're usually 6 to 8 states represented every Friday. And it's emotional support. It is not 12-step associated. It's not drug and alcohol associated. It's emotional support. It's not even mental health specific. And we have a lot of fun, and there are regulars, and there are always new folks, which is very exciting. And some of them stay. They come for a little while, they get what they need, or it's their portal into the world of emotional support and mental health. For some people, it's the first group experience they've ever had. It's not really even group therapy because it's emotional support. So I facilitate that. I see individual clients at a dual diagnosis center here in my hood in the San Fernando Valley. I live in Sherman Oaks. Mm-hmm. And then we have a recording studio in that place, but I have little or no involvement with it. It's hip hop oriented, and the guy that runs it's amazing. And the clients love using the narrative. They love using essentially rap music to make sense of their recovery. That is the Chuck Berry of that demographic, right? That's the basic DNA of what they're dealing with is beats and rapping, unlike us, where the basic DNA was guitar chord progressions and melodies or piano chord progressions and melodies. Work with them. I drop in every once in a while and give them a thumbs up and say it's awesome, because quite often it's really good. I see very few clients because I don't have the bandwidth, because I'm so busy musically. And also, I'm too much of an empath. It's too emotionally challenging. I don't, at my age, at this point in my own personal journey, it's very difficult for me to be present for more than a handful of people, because the interaction, it's not a toll at all. It doesn't hurt me or harm me. It just requires literally so much prana, so much concentration, so much presence of mind, that I have limited resources for that. It has an adverse effect if my client load is too heavy.
Hey, Paul, you know who Oliver Sacks was? He's gone now, but he was a brain guy. Awakenings. He was a brain doctor. I'm not. My degree is in fine arts. I'm not a brain doctor. But he did, his last major work that I'm familiar with was about music. He said, look, some people can take music or leave it. I'm one that I feel deprived if I go any amount of time without hearing music that I like. And he said, I've seen a lot of brains. I've been digging inside cadavers for 1,000 years. And he said, here's a funny thing about brain physiognomy. I can look at a brain and I can't tell you if it's a kind person or a rotten person or a smart person or a dumb person or a mean person or any of that shit. He said, but I can pretty reliably identify the brain of a musician.
Wow, I didn't know that.
He named some part of the brain that I don't know anything about this stuff. And he said it's especially thick and robust and maybe even built up, you might say. Oh, is that chicken or egg? Is it people with that kind of brain become musicians, or musicians' brains physics changes? And he goes, don't know. He goes, but they're different. Mm-hmm. Somebody like me that's just always got music going through their head and thinks about it their whole lifetime, their brains are different from those that don't.
Are you familiar with the book This Is Your Brain on Music by Daniel Levitan?
No, sir.
Daniel he was a B division producer in the Bay Area. He was making a living and stuff, and he realized he was hitting a wall. He wasn't going to get to A-list or whatever. So he went to Stanford and got a PhD in the neurophysiology of how music affects the brain. He's got 2 books. This Is Your Brain on Music, which is amazing. It's about people like us. That what I believe is there's a certain, and he believes that, I got this from him, there's a segment of the population, 7 to 10% of the population, that think and feel in Technicolor when they talk about music, listen to music, experience music. They may not even be musicians. They just love it, right? It makes their day. And then he has a second book called The World in 6 Songs, which is great for songwriters, because it's the premise is like, look, man, there's basically 6 songs, 6 lanes, right? 6 categories of songs. And we're all writing these 6 songs over and over again. Because remember, a song is where the narrative, the melody, and the track, the beat, and all the chords and stuff convene. That's what makes a song, the intersection of those 3 things. The lyric and the melody all converge in a certain place that people go, that's perfect. That's a perfect song. I love that song.
Well, my 9-year-old, our Venn diagram, one place we can always agree, the Beatles. There's the Beatles, then there's nobody, then there's everybody else. But I may be prejudiced. All right, my friend, that's it. And I really have been looking forward to this. And as always, my conversation with you exceeded whatever I walked into expecting. You're a very, very special guy, and I love you, and thanks for doing the show.
Right back at you, and keep me posted on all your adventures, okay?
You know, I can't help myself. I'll see you, pal.
Bye for now.